Welcome to episode 251 of the Grip Strip podcast. The champ is here, appropriately titled because for the sixth time in his fantasy career, but the first time in this show's history, we have a fantasy football champion in Philip Matthew, winner of the 2024 Fall Brawl League. So, welcome to the show, champ. How you doing?
Yeah, it's great to be back. It's great to be back with this belt over here. Thank you, Josh. That is, of course, the iRacing Indy 500 champion. See, I've been introducing Josh as the iRacing Indy 500 champion. We also know that he's a Cannonball Run, pseudo Cannonball Run success story, computer genius, a gentleman, a scholar. I've never really had anything that could, with the gravitas of any of those things. And who knows, maybe that's still not the case. But I'm sixth time now, and I'm going to work this gimmick for as long as I can. I'm gonna be I'm gonna be a man. I'm gonna be 40 soon, as Mike Gundy once famously said. I'm gonna learn that during this year, and by Halloween, I'm gonna be wearing that costume. Probably wear this belt just cause, and have the costume with the mullet hat. Um, Amongst other things, we're gonna have fun here. Episode 251. It's crazy to think 250 episodes of the show have passed after 5 seasons. Now we're on season 6. Back ready, locked and loaded for a new year. We know certain things are going to go on that are going to destabilize stuff, but in other areas, we're going to have a lot to talk about. And that's why we have this show. And we're going to talk about the NFL. Both of our teams have made adjustments on Black Monday after what was a long season. We'll also talk about what happened with fantasy, not just for me in the Fall Brawl League, but I was able to win 2 other leagues. So it was a very prolific season, best performance in my long time playing. To win 3 leagues is ridiculous. So I am very happy about it. A lot of hard work in terms of that idle time at work. So I use that to good use. Time at bowling, not when I wasn't sitting there watching what was going on, going and doing research, grinding here on this computer, trying to beat the likes of Josh, Vic, Joe, Wilson, they're all the guys, Luke and Steve, who probably is the best drafter of all of us. So, I mean, it was a really tough league. And so, to win this league, I have this placard over here and it's upside down, but this shows that once upon a time I was 5-time. And the reality is, once I decided to hire all my close friends and some of their friends, Josh being, of course, later on, and ever since you've joined the league, this was the first year where it wasn't ideal for you. But the fact is, otherwise, you've been a perennial playoff performer in this league. Wilson and Vic have freaking nut punched me in the final, I think 4 times. I have it here. I wrote it down because I just wanted to know. Yeah, I lost by less than a point in 2011, and that was for, I think, that was for 4 in a row. Yeah, to Vic, yeah. That was for 4 in a row to start the league. 16, I lost by 6 in the semifinals. 2017, I lost by 1.9 in the final. So yeah, that was to Wilson. And yeah, that was the last time I think I made the final, was 2017. So the fact that, to get to, or no, I actually made it in 2022. My bad. 2018 I made it, and I somehow or another lost to Manny, which is just crazy. Um, well, he had good luck, I guess, that year. Considering that Manny is a perennial last place finisher in our league, but then he scores with so many women, and he has a great job, and I wish I looked like him at 52. Um, I think he's winning in those areas, so the fact that he sucks at fantasy football doesn't really matter as much. I'm trying to get there myself, to be fair, scoring in that area while also doing this. Um, but, it's in a year where the 49ers sucked ass on so many levels. First time in a few years that's been the case. I somehow or another am able to put together a great fantasy year, and I mean, a lot had to go right to make that happen. I mean, in my league, just in general, I basically was able to ride the coattails of Lamar Jackson, who's going to finish second in the MVP race because of what's funny is, I mean, we'll talk about it, but it's like this is probably his best season of his career, and he's not going to win the MVP because of voter fatigue. When there were the other 2 years, I could make a case there were better people. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, I'll keep on saying it, should have won it last year. The other year that he won it, they just gave it to him just because. The reality is he should have won it this year. It's going to be Josh Allen. Really could be Joe Burrow too, to be fair. But they weren't able to make the playoffs. Cincinnati Bengals have no defense and no offensive line. They're going to waste his career. That's a shame. But, Vlad McConkey, Chase Brown before he fell over. I had Baker went off for 53 points. And I had J.K. Dobbins on the bench, Jalen McMillan. I had those guys on the bench. So, Chuba Hubbard had been a big part of my team, but then he got hurt and he ended up having to go on IR. But this is basically the foundation. Justin Jefferson was there. I mean, I drafted Lamar and Justin. So those were guys that I had originally.
Baker Mayfield.
I'm trying to look at the draft results. So I'm gonna go back to my team.
I think you
so
drafted Baker. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I drafted Baker in the 8th round. So yeah, those are my top 2 picks. Pacheco went down. I had Herbert. I traded him. Rashad White was my 4th round pick. He ended up not being as good. I went Tampa Bay heavy, and I guess I knew something. Godwin, I had Godwin in the 9th, but he ended up getting hurt. But then I picked up Jalen McMillan. My IDPs were not amazing. I took a flyer on Roma Dunze. That didn't really go too well. Kevin Byard would have been a good one to keep, but I ended up making some decent pickups on the IDPs. The back end of my draft was not great. I can make a case that I think the first half of my draft was pretty good. The first 8 picks were pretty good. And then I think I punted the second half of my draft. Of my original team here, I only kept 4 of those players. So it proves a point of what fantasy football is. I mean, 3/4 of my original team ended up not being on my team when it counted. So interesting, but it's a part of how fantasy football works. You always have to keep moving. In the semifinals, I was able to knock Luke, who was probably the luckiest MFer of anybody in the league this year. Fading Steve because I was the number 1 seed. Joe, who was the number 4 seed, originally, knocked off Wilson in a very close battle in the first round, then put up 231 points in the semifinal. I ended up putting up just under 234, 233.9. And then in the final, because of Baker Mayfield, because of some of these other guys, it was destruction. And then even if Steve had made it, I would have gotten him too. But yeah, I mean that's what happened there. In the league I'd won last year, the league I've been in, and actually let's if we're gonna go and do show and tell, I got a championship belt over here. Like you got that champion. And then long time ago, I was in another league and I got a trophy, like an actual trophy from the guy, NASCAR fan. It has my placard from 2011 when I won it the first time. And my team name was Smoke Number 14, ironically enough, since that was Tony's third
Third
championship.
championship. Yeah.
And then I've written my team names on here. I'm gonna have to write 2024 over there. I'm gonna have to keep on. I'm gonna have to keep on writing on that like bottom part. It's almost gonna be like a ghetto Borg Warner or ghetto Stanley Cup for me. And then I think the ring gimmick. I'm probably gonna hold off on the ring gimmick. But just out of haven't seen it on the show before, so might as well have the ring gimmick, right there. Championship ring, championship belt. The Niners can't get a Super Bowl ring, so I might as well have a fake fantasy football ring then. Um, so yeah, and then Vic and I won our dynasty league after what has been a struggle in that league in general, for us to win, get in the playoffs even. So the fact is, very prolific fantasy year in a year that was a wild year in football in general, leading into in a playoff run that, of course, we're going to talk about here um, in more detail. But before that, of course, we're going to get into some updates for our actual teams and Black Monday. And Josh, after that great open, bringing it kind of to a negative, unfortunately, but it's something that you spent probably the last 3 months of the show last year talking about, the apparent demise of once Super Bowl winning head coach Doug Peterson, but somehow or another, Chad Kahn decided to keep Trent Baalke and fire Doug Peterson. So I throw to you. It wasn't the only instance of maybe a questionable decision amongst all of these teams, in terms of making one, getting rid of one and not the other, getting rid of both. But I mean, Doug Peterson getting canned, he was a dead man walking, I think, back in October. But now it's a job. Now Bill Belichick, of course, off the table. Mike Vrabel, for all intents and purposes, is going to New England Patriots. So then, a lot to look at there. A lot of moving parts. But the first question is, I mean, I know you wanted Doug Peterson out, but how do you feel about Balky staying alive like a cockroach, proving once again that he must either be a great knob gobbler or he must have some blackmail material, the same way as he had blackmail material for I don't know how many years on the Yorks. Now the Cons, he must have something because he's not a great talent evaluator. And I mean, it's great. You drafted Brian Thomas Jr., but it's like you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that the guy is a great wide receiver. Um, he went to LSU, their wide receiver U.
Yeah.
So I think that was not a hard one to pick. They've had how many years? So I'll let you talk about it and just kind of go over all of that and what we should be expecting from you guys here during this Black Monday, post Black Monday process for another head coach to try and get back to where you were. What was it, back 2017 when you guys had the best defense in the NFL and were probably a decent quarterback away from going to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, it's been a precipitous fall, unfortunately, for Jags. And it's something that I know as a Niner fan when Steve Young got injured and that was the end of his career. The Niners basically became the laughing stock of football and were terrible for over a decade and then became good again for like 3-4 years, then sucked again. And then we've had the Kyle Shanahan regime, which has had varying degrees of success, mostly heartache, but in the end, but a lot of success relative otherwise. But give us your 2 cents on what the Jaguars are thinking here.
After all of that, first, I will say you have 6 fantasy championships now. You need to get the 7 to equivalent. You'll have as many championships as Mr. The King, Dale Earnhardt, and Jimmy Johnson. So you'll have that going for you if you do it again next year. But
and Sir Lewis Hamilton, which actually should be 10. 8. And happy birthday to him. It is his 40th birthday. He's a man. He's 40. He's 19 days older than me. And Ferrari made him a nice cake, posted it on their social media. Yeah, so, all right, you can go.
No, I know. But yeah, so you got that. But no, for me, I mean, yeah, I've been saying fire Doug Peterson since like week 3, I think, officially. And honestly, I think I felt that like after the end of last year when they lost 5 out of the last 6 to miss the playoffs, which it was pretty clear to me. I mean, this was probably, you could foresee this coming as far as last November when they lost to the 49ers, going back there and looking at the tape and, Jaguars fans that know ball, saying like, well, this will probably end in, kind of a pissing contest and Doug getting fired because they don't know, or they won't be able to get what they can out of Trevor. And at the time, that was because the offense that they were running at that time was and still was pretty bad, but just poorly schemed overall. And losing 5 out of the 6 last year, it was clear. The defense was bad, the offense regressed heavily. A lot of injuries and stuff, but then it seemed overall just the team had lost the message there. And then starting off this year, we go out 17-0 over the Dolphins, and we're like, okay, I mean, this looks, we're gonna win this game, or 17-7 over the Dolphins, and then ETN fumbles in the red zone, and the Dolphins immediately get a touchdown, and then it's like game over. The Jags don't know what to do. And then, of course, getting crushed by the Buffalo Bills week 3. And, I was like, okay, well, this is basically over because you don't have playoff expectations. Well, I mean, you can, but you can't play like that in week 3, on Monday Night Football. And then, later on get crushed 52-6 by the Lions and have, multiple losses like that throughout the year, and just have complete offensive ineptitude throughout at least one half of football. The Trevor Lawrence concussion, the team played soft after that, so the culture just wasn't there. So for Doug Peterson, I mean, people say, oh, like, sorry for him or whatever. I mean, no, I mean, he feels bad because his program failed. So, for me, it's clear that he lost it, whatever he did to get to the Super Bowl in 2017. I mean, first of all, I mean, Nick Foles was the guy that did the Philly special who called that play. But, Doug Peterson is funny because, after that year, he's like, oh, I can't believe the Jaguars, because he wrote in his autobiography, about the Jaguars kneeling it out to end the half in the AFC Championship game against the Patriots, and he talked about how insane that was that they did that, and 8 years later now he's been fired as coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So to me, I mean, it seems like the whole, like, he didn't get rid of Press Taylor when he should have. The defense staff got fired last year and they were mid-level, and now they were the 32nd defense this year. So that shows how bad it was. The defense, Ryan Nielsen went and throughout the year sub players in and out like they're hockey players, right? Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, two of the best edge rushers in the league, and then second series, okay, we'll swap you out, put the backups in, and then we want Eric Armstead at edge instead of nose tackle. And then Eric Armstead, the final press conference for him in the locker room at the end of the year, says, well, hopefully next year I get to play more inside like I was supposed to be playing. So that tells you a lot. But it just didn't work for Doug Peterson, just coaching off the hubris of winning the Super Bowl and just thinking that he can, just because he won the Super Bowl, that, oh, it's his system and it's supposed to work and all that stuff. And all the bad press conferences he had throughout the year, basically just all but saying it's Trevor's fault and not his, and everything. So you have that. And then of course on the other end, for all of that being said, I mean, I expected that to happen because there's no way that they can continue with him, because it was clear it just wasn't working. And took him a long time to get Brian Thomas Jr. going, and I think that should be the direction next year, to feed Brian Thomas Jr. But in any event, I knew that would happen. But the other end was, okay, would they fire Trent Baalke? And they didn't, which was shocking to a degree, but also not really that shocking, because of course it seemed like Trent Baalke's probably in Shad's ear, the whole way, saying, okay, well, Doug can't coach the best team ever assembled, as Shad said back in training camp, and he's able to save his job there, and he can point to being able to drafting Brian Thomas Jr., Trayvon Walker too. I mean, people said they should have, and a lot of people still say that they should have drafted Aiden Hutchinson, and Trayvon Walker is pretty underrated. Maybe he's not dominating quite as much as what a number one pick should be, but I mean, he's put up double digit sacks back-to-back years, and is continuing to improve as a defensive player, and of course probably could have had more if he were playing in all the snaps instead of having to do rock paper scissors to get onto the field. So that's a real thing, by the way. That's not something I'm making up, but that's a real thing.
I'm sure. Yeah. Which the notion of Eric Armstead actually talking, when you have him talking at all, is amazing. So that the wheels were falling off, because he never said anything about anything. He was the guy who was the Walter Payton Man of the Year recipient, or guy they would send up every single year. I don't know for how many years with the 49ers. Never heard anything bad about him. He never would say a ill will about anything. So things are bad when he's talking. And Josh Allen, who one of the best edge rushers in the league, didn't really hear about him. Like Trayvon Walker is a number one overall pick. You don't really hear about him. How the hell is that possible when they're supposed to be elite talents? Olmstead isn't an elite talent. Is he a good run stopper? Yes, I will give him that. Was he as good as everyone made him out to be? No. but his main thing was stopping the run. You put him inside, he knows how to read those guards, he knows how to stop the run. If you're going to take him out of that role, he can't rush the passer. He sucks
Yeah.
at rushing the passer. And that's been the case. I could have said that. You could have asked me that when he signed for $8 trillion with the Jaguars. He sucks at rushing the passer. He's not a pass rusher. He's an interior defensive lineman, a lighter interior defensive lineman, but that makes him more athletic to play against those guards, and be able to stop the run. That's where his um, positive is, but it doesn't sound like he was used that way.
Right. And yeah, not used that way, of course, but I mean, back to his Trent Baalke, I mean, yeah, he's got all these players, right? They're all, he can pick individually good players, right? Christian Kirk, I mean, I still think that was a good signing. Obviously you had Trevor Lawrence, of course, which, I mean, yeah, of course he would have that. And a handful of, other guys that have, I mean, Foye Oluokun, that was a good thing there. But then also you have things like, okay, we're going to draft 2 linebackers in the first 3 rounds of the draft, drafting Devin Lloyd, and then also drafting Chad Muma, and then a year later drafting Ventrell Miller in the 3rd round as well. So, individually great players, which, Ventrell Miller is another one that's kind of come on, spent 2023 on injured reserve, but this year in kind of a backup role really played well and everything. But just not being able to put together a solid team together, right? So that's, I think, the other part that kind of hamstrung Doug is that you kind of have like a bunch of really good ingredients, but you can't really make a good meal. Maybe some parts might taste good, but the whole plate doesn't really complement each other, right? And so you have kind of like a random hodgepodge of flavors that don't completely mix well and may individually taste good, but don't work well when you make it a full meal. But like having leftovers for dinner, or something like that. But Trent, of course, staying on, and I mean the press conference yesterday, that Shad was like, well, they asked him like, how was like, well, they couldn't ask him directly, but they asked him like why he didn't clean house, and he's like, well, I don't want to fire everybody, don't want to fire like all 85 people, the team doctor, etc. And it's like, you don't have to fire like the entire organization. You just have to fire the people who are in charge, because that's what matters. You have to fire the coach, which they did, and then the manager, and then have vision. And when you look at other teams, you look at the Lions, like they have vision between Dan Campbell and their general manager. They have a vision, and you're seeing it now because Brand Holmes, and you're seeing it now. They're in the number 1 team in the NFC, and they're likely to at least make it to the NFC Championship game 2 years in a row. And you're seeing it play out. They had a bad first year, 3-13, and then second year didn't make the playoffs, but they prevented Green Bay from making it. Last year really turned on, and then this year, I mean, they had tons of injuries on defense, and yet they basically shut out the Vikings on Sunday Night Football to win the NFC North and be the number 1 seed. So there's vision there. And I mean, Shad doesn't want to have to do this. He doesn't want to have to fire people because he doesn't want to have to continuously go through this process. And that's why he does the half measure stuff, because he doesn't want to actually have to go through this process, because he can't be bothered to actually go through the process. Because you had Tom Coughlin, Super Bowl winner, hired to be executive vice president, which that was the good idea, but he just hired the wrong guy, because Tom Coughlin is not really a manager. He's a coach. He's going to want to get involved and get his hands in everything, and just meddle too much into it, and clash too often with Doug Marrone and Dave Caldwell. So he was out. 2018, the previous year was bad because they didn't have a good quarterback and the offense sucked. 2016, they fired Gus Bradley, and then kind of just laid it all on him and said it was his fault and stuff. And then, go back, jump forward to 2020. They fired Caldwell and Marrone, but Balky, that was the year Balky joined on as like director of pro player personnel or something, and then he was able to wiggle his way into being general manager once Caldwell was fired in the middle of that season. And then 21, of course, Urban was fired, which, I mean, that's pretty clear that was the issue there, right? And then, okay, Balky gets a pass there. And then 23, the defense sucked, allegedly, and so they fired the entire defensive staff. And then this year now is basically all but laying at the feet of Peterson. So now he gets another head coach. So I mean, to me, it's as long as Shad is making money, as long as the team, they get a new stadium in a few years, it's increasing in value. He's an asset to the league. The team is an asset to the league. That's all this is. That they'll continue to just go through this process every couple of years, and he needs to hire executive vice president for football. I mean, they have a vice president, Mark Lamping, for the team for business, but they don't have a vice president for football that can kind of oversee things for Shad, because Shad's not in there every day. He's in for the game usually, and then out, goes back to Illinois at University of Illinois, the Champaign-Urbana, wherever he's from in Illinois, and that's where he actually lives. And then the only time he's actually in town is when the yacht is parked there in the St. Johns River. That's when he's actually in town, and when you see that yacht, that's a big deal because he's actually there in Jacksonville. And they need somebody that's actually in the building every day that has a vision and can hire a general manager and a coach that have ideas and understand how to put together a winning franchise that can consistently compete in the playoffs, and not just like, okay, I want to hire a good coach that can make us winner quickly and win the Super Bowl, but then it blows up very quickly because the people in the building continue to clash and stuff, and it doesn't work out because of clash of ideas and clash of personalities, which is what this is. So now we're kind of left in this half mess once again, and we'll see what they do with the players. But now they got to hire a new head coach, which they released their list today of head coaches, and of that list, I mean, I'm looking at Ben Johnson. I think that's number one. Liam Cohen, Robert Saleh, Aaron Glenn, who actually used to play the Jaguars in 2007. So MJD gave his endorsement there. Said that's one of the smartest people I was around during that year when they made the playoffs in 2007. So, yeah, I mean, we're looking at that, and I mean, any of those coaches in my mind, maybe Mike Vrabel, but he's probably going to go to the Patriots. But any of those coaches, I'd be fine with, and I mean, any of those guys, they probably would be really good. I mean, they might be partial to Bob Saleh because I think they wanted, that was like a missed opportunity to keep him around after 2016 when his contract expired and he went to the 49ers as a defensive coordinator. So, I mean, I think because of what happened with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers after he was fired shows that he was actually a really good head coach and just had a toxic environment around him. So if maybe he can have another chance in Jacksonville, we'll see. But it's going to be hopefully the head coach has a bigger personality than the owner and the GM and says, look, I'm not going to put up with this either. Get rid of this guy, or I'm not going to coach. So we'll see what happens. And Shad, of course, didn't listen to anybody, and didn't have anybody from the league tell him what to do or give him solid advice because they're all okay with him because hey, he brings money to the league. He's an asset. The Jaguars are an asset to the league and helps everybody's continue to grow in terms of revenue. And they're not going to be like, oh well, Shad, you need to get a better process because they're okay with the Jaguars as they are right now. They're not a threat. So the Jaguars, they've got to figure something out. I mean, this guy's 74 years old. So, this process is going to continue, then or likely, I mean, this is going to be 15 to 20 years of this foolishness before somebody else can come in, unless he gets somebody else. Like maybe his son might have a better idea if he has the the reins full time rather than Shad does. I think Tony has ownership, but I think it's not enough to, he doesn't have a big enough stake to be the one making the decisions. He's just kind of there in name only and as representation. So we'll see what happens with this coaching hire now. I mean, the list, for what it's worth, is pretty good of who they want to look at for head coach. They had, I pull it up real quick, but they had plenty of solid names on there. But just from my standpoint, the 4 people that I want on there, with Ben Johnson, Glenn Sala, and Liam Cohen, offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course. But they also had Todd Monken on there. I think used to be the wide receivers coach during the Jack Del Rio era here in Jacksonville. Kellen Moore, I don't know about that one. Patrick Graham, never heard of him. Joe Brady, solid with LSU and with the Buffalo Bills, so that could be another good hire there. So yeah, we'll see how this goes here this offseason, see what they do with some of the players. Do they keep Christian Kirk around another year, even though he's been hurt the last 2? What are they going to do with the defense? What's the defensive scheme going to look like, and everything? So yeah, another Black Monday, and hopefully one of the last ones for the Jaguars for a while, but can't see it happening again until we understand, or until we find out who the hire is, and we go through the next couple of seasons. So I don't know. It's not really looking great, to be honest, with the Jaguars.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of the 49ers post Jim Harbaugh, because Trent won that battle with the owners, which was Jed York. At that point, you brought up Tony Khan. Jed was given the reins because his mom and dad were fucking retarded and incapable of running a professional football team. Had no clue. Were a joke in the town, to the point where they don't even play in San Francisco anymore. They play in Santa Clara. They lost out on the stadium where the Giants play because Peter McGowan actually isn't a total douche. He actually is intelligent enough, buttered up the Congress people and the state, or whatever, the town council people, and got one of the most beautiful stadiums ever made right there on the bay, which is where the team that won 5 Super Bowls should have been. But like with Trent, he went and won that battle, and then proceeded to take the Niners to the point where they had the worst roster in the NFL. And they were an absolute dumpster fire. And so that's what the Jaguars are flirting with. You have a quarterback, of course, in Trevor Lawrence. You have pieces. You have high draft picks on both sides of the ball. There's potential and talent there. The owner doesn't really have a clue, but is he the worst owner in the NFL? By far, no. You brought up the Jets, and Woody Johnson, I think, takes that bill by he takes that baton and runs with it right into the water and into wherever the hell he's going to go, because he's an idiot. Bob Saleh, do I think he's a head coach? I don't think that. I'll say this: Todd Bowles was a Jets head coach, and everyone said that he sucked and he was terrible. He's just won, I don't know how many years in a row he's won the division, albeit it may be the worst division or one of the worst divisions in the NFL, but he's won it. He took Baker Mayfield, who was on his 4th team, and now he looks like the guy that was a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. Like, the Jets are proof positive. You may not work there, but you may get a chance somewhere else, and you might be able to do something. Do I think that would be the case for Bob Saleh? I'm not so sure. Personally, I want him to come back to the 49ers. I wish they would fire their defensive coordinator because he sucked. He was worse than Steve Wilkes, and everyone blamed Steve Wilkes last year when, to be fair, the defense, the players were the problem. And now the scheme and the defensive scheme, play calling, and the players were the problem. While the defense did suck, the special teams was worse, and the Niners have one of the worst special teams in the NFL and had that for years. Finally, Kyle, in his infinite wisdom, fired the special teams coordinator. Whoever they're gonna pick up has to work with Josh Moody, and the fact, or Jake Moody. Sorry, Josh. Sorry, I'm mixing up my J's. Jake Moody. Well, yeah, he was trying to change his name to some other J name, Josh or John or whatever, because he needed to go into witness protection because he forgot how to kick. And so the fact is, whoever's coming in has to address Jake Moody. They have to address the coverage, which was absolute abomination coverage. And then try to figure out somebody who can actually return kicks. And so that's something we'll see. It's not as big, of course. You got other coaches that were fired in your division, Josh. I mean, the Indianapolis Colts somehow or another kept Ballard, and I mean Steichen, I think isn't that bad of a coach, but they kept Chris Ballard, which proves once again that Jim Irsay just needs a drinking buddy, and that's his drinking buddy because they're gonna suck. And then the Tennessee Titans, they fire Rand Carthon, but then they had some other guy that was in the background basically saying Rand Carthon was the problem. You gave him 2 years. I mean, that team was not great. Vrabel basically was taking spare parts and winning at times, and that's probably why he's gonna be able to get carte blanche once he goes to New England. Robert Kraft is praying and hoping that he has Belichick Part 2. That's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, you have all those. The trends here are you're firing. It seems like there's guys like you see black head coaches. Of course, Antonio Pierce gets fired, one and done. Gerard Mayo, one and done. Which is seemingly a thing for black head coaches, doesn't happen to white head coaches, no matter how terrible they are, which I think is a pretty disturbing trend, to say the least. And it's also a bad thing, especially in the general manager area, when guys are getting fired after a couple of years. Other than that, I mean, yeah, Bob Saleh, so there was questionable moves there in that division. The Jets, of course, they got rid of everybody, but who knows what they're gonna do? They're a joke. Miami kept Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer, which was to some surprising. It's probably because Tua said he wants them there. The one that was the most surprising, especially for me being in the New York tri-state area, New York, New Jersey tri-state area, was the Giants keeping Brian Dable and Joe Shane, which basically John Mara tried to explain and wasn't a great explanation at all, to be fair, because the reality of the world is trying to go and win when you don't have you don't really have a plan. I mean, they don't really have a plan. Like they've had all this time, and now you're going to go back, probably draft a quarterback that we don't know for sure what will be there. Will that be the answer? And then you have to win. They're both going to get fired next year. It's going to be the same way as what happened with the Jets. They should have fired both of those guys last year. They didn't. They ran it back. They fired both of them 6 weeks into the season. Same shit's going to happen with the Giants. And I mean, the Jets are going to also suck too, so it's whatever. The Jets have the longest streak of not making the playoffs in all of sports, pro sports, and that'll continue. So, I mean, if it weren't for the Yankees and the Mets, the Knicks are actually good again, and then the Liberty won the WNBA championship. But football is atrocious. Hockey is terrible, unless you're a Devils fan, but that's not me. So, yeah, I mean, we have other head coaches. I mentioned Mayo, and then I mentioned Antonio Pierce. Chicago had made their call a while back. New Orleans made their call a while back. Cincinnati got rid of Lou Anarumo, but honestly, I don't think that it was all Lou Anarumo. It's the fact that Mike Brown's a cheap bastard. If he could actually keep and sign people like, I don't know, Jesse Bates, maybe their defense could stop something. They have good rush guys like Trey Hendrickson, but you really don't have much else. You don't have an offensive line in front of one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So is it really the defensive coordinator's fault when the owner's a cheap bastard? I don't think so. Cleveland got rid of a bunch of coaches. They didn't get rid of the head coach, but then Cleveland's also a freaking dumpster fire. So, yeah, and then we got Seattle got rid of their offensive coordinator, but they were not terrible, so I don't understand that. I mean, they weren't as good as they had been in the past, but yes. Gangarello, he used to be with the 49ers, okay. And Getsy, I know that name, but I'm trying to remember where Getsy was. But yeah, you talked about your guys. Todd Monken has been the offensive coordinator for the Ravens post what the fuck's his name? The guy that's Jim Harbaugh's right hand guy, Greg Roman. And what do you call Lamar Jackson's taking a huge step forward. Patrick Graham, don't know. But yeah, and Kellen Moore, I loved him as the Boise State quarterback. He won. He was a great winner. He did good work in Dallas. Obviously, Mike McCarthy wants everyone to think that it was his fault. It was the fault of Kellen Moore, but their offense took a step back this year. So was it really all Kellen Moore's fault? I'm not so sure about that. But then it's Dallas, so there's that. All right, let us move forward. We'll get into more of the playoffs later on. In NASCAR news, we're a few weeks away from, just under a month away from the Clash at Bowman Gray. News of the week, the big news of the week. Helio Castro Neves is going to attempt to run the Daytona 500. The 4-time Indianapolis 500 winner is going to try to make his first NASCAR race, and it's the biggest NASCAR race there is. It's not in the same vein as when Al Unser Jr. just won the Indianapolis 500 and then attempted with Hendrick Motorsports before they became Hendrick Motorsports. Trackhouse is coming off of an off year. They're expanding to 3 teams with Shane Van Gisbergen. So there's things going on, but the Project 91 effort is going to be there. Martin Truex Jr. Said he's going to race with Tricon, or at least attempt with Tricon. So we don't know what number, we don't know a bunch of stuff. It'll be a Bass Pro car, of course, but that's an open car. Those are a couple pieces of news. The Zane Smith signed with Front Row, which was basically out there for a while. Once he got let go by Trackhouse, he was going to sign with Front Row, go back to Front Row, and he'll be in the 38 car. The theoretically the new car, the third charter that they got from SHR is going to be Noah Gagson. It'll be the number 4, and he's bringing a bunch of his guys from the 10 team over. So that'll be the 3 teams at Front Row. We talked about people at 2311 based on the moves that they made. And in terms of, Mike Wallace is going to attempt to make the Daytona 500 for MBM. So those are some of the Cup Series news. What is it? Mason, Derek Cope is back owning a team. I don't know. Mason Maggio, multiple races. Cesar Baccarello running Daytona, which is not really that surprising. He always seems to. In terms of Dean Thompson takes his daddy's money to race in the Xfinity Series with Sam Hunt. Justin Bonsignor, the 4-time NASCAR modified champion, will be racing a limited schedule for Joe Gibbs. So that's news there. In terms of, we got Tricon Garage. Will they have the number 1 truck is going to have Brent Cruz, the 16-year-old, Buckshot Jones, Sawalich, and Lawless Allen, who's going to be running for the ARCA championship full-time this year for Venturini. So that'll be interesting. See if Lawless Allen can actually win a championship. Jake Hampton. All right, so those are the 4. So Tricon Garage there. I'm surprised they announced Martin Truex, because if they're going to have him run a Cup car. Otherwise, we talk about the Tulsa shootout. We'll talk about that a little later, but you got Chandler Smith. I don't know if did the Chandler Smith thing happen before we? No, it didn't. Chandler Smith is actually going back to the Truck Series. He's going to be a teammate to Lane Riggs. So Chandler Smith takes his parents' money and he gets to go back to the trucks and put himself in a position to win a championship. Puts himself in the Ford camp for what it's worth, albeit now with the limit on charters. Roush has expanded to their maximum. So is Front Row. How many options would Chandler Smith really have at the moment? I don't know. But they have, what it is that Front Row Motorsports is definitely becoming a young driver, or at least a younger driver powerhouse, and Ford's future in a lot of ways. A lot of pieces are there for them to actually try and make something happen. So we'll see what happens with that. They'll be competitive. I'll say that Front Row Motorsports can contend with Tricon, with Corey Heim, and then you have the McAnally team, which is going to have Daniel Hemrick as their one of their lead dogs. there. So that'll be the teams that are all up there, I would think. In terms of IndyCar, we had some news. I mean, Connor Daly got announced to run full time for Junkos Honger for this year. We also have, well, oh, look, Justin Marks actually said that he's gonna looks a future Indy 500 entry. Marco Andretti just announced he'll run or attempt to make his 20th Indy 500. McLaren taking sole ownership of the team that was once Schmidt Peterson Motorsports. Yeah, we can Pierce. Yeah, so that was the Connor Daly move, and then we still don't know who Dale Coyne's gonna have, but that's IndyCar news. I mean, we talked about Helio Castroneves. Formula One, there's been some movement in regards to driver. I think in F2, the Red Bull, the big one, of course, was Sergio Perez was let go. Liam Lawson was announced as the teammate for Fish Lips. And then at whatever the hell they call themselves now, Toro Rosso, Yuki Tsunoda will have one more year, and then they moved Isaac Hadjar up, the F2 runner-up this past year. They will run him as a second driver next year, so that'll be interesting to see how he fares. One of 6 rookies in Formula One in 2025, which is pretty interesting. I don't remember there being so many rookies in one season in F1 ever, but you think about it. I mean, in terms of the big 4 teams, they all have, what is it? 2 of the 4 have veteran lineups of sorts. Team that have multiple years. Mercedes is going to have a rookie, and then and Red Bull's going to have a guy who has a handful of Formula One races under his belt, essentially a rookie. So that'll be 2 of the 4 teams that are contending teams. And then with the midfield and towards the back, a lot more youth, for the exception of Williams, which will have the 2 Red Bull cast-offs in Albon and Sainz. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of rookies with a veteran driver, or never will be's, and washed up has-beens like they have at Aston Martin. But you have Adrian Newey, so we'll see how that all works out. Okay, so did you see anything else that was out there in terms of any of these series, Josh? Or
I didn't see anything major. I mean, I guess we can add on, I guess, somewhat NASCAR related. I saw that Austin Cindric is going to be entering the 24 Hours of Daytona with which team? The 64.
the Ford,
Yeah,
the Ford Multimatic GT Daytona Pro team. Yeah.
So, yeah,
So that'll be give himself a chance to win a Rolex to add to his Daytona 500 trophy for Gumby. Won his second Daytona 500 start. He won that deal, so be able to go out there and give himself a chance in the Rolex and GTD Pro to to go and win that. So, unfortunately, one of the drivers got in a skiing accident. Tells you how dangerous skiing is. We've heard about it in many instances, but Cindric, being the somewhat versatile driver that he is in the past, especially in sports car racing, getting a chance in a good car, in a car that was able to improve as the season went on, in a uber competitive class. Multimatic Motorsports has won at the Rolex over the years, so I figure they're gonna come correct here. You have, of course, Corvette, Pratt Miller. You have other guys. All these different manufacturers. So it'll be interesting to see. A couple weeks from now, we will definitely preview and discuss the Rolex 24 in more detail, for sure. Let's move over to the GSP Roundup for the first time in 2025. The Dakar Rally is going on right now. They went through 3 stages, the prologue, and then 3 regular stages. One of them being the 48-hour enduro stage, which was where one of the women that I have a crush on in life and in general, Sarah Price, one of those beautiful women in racing. Unfortunately, after a great performance last year in the Dakar Rally, finishing very well in her debut, ended up falling out in stage 2 of the race because they had different issues with the engine, so they couldn't keep the thing running. So unfortunately, probably the sexiest woman in the race has gone, but now she gets to go and stick around and root for her boyfriend, the 2-time winner Ricky Brabeck, who rides, of course, in the bike category. Seth Quintero, the American rider or American driver driving for Toyota, won stage 1. So that was cool to see for him. The classification as of now, after 3 stages, in the bike category, Lorenzo Santolino leads Ricky Brabeck by 4 minutes, just 4 minutes and a second. American teammate, Brabeck's teammate, Skylar House, is 4 minutes 10 seconds back. Defending race winner Ross Branch for the Hero team, Indian, of course, bike Hero, 4 minutes 14 back. Luciano Benavides for Red Bull KTM. Of course, KTM having major issues. Lewis Hamilton talking to them, possibly out investing. 4 minutes 55 seconds back in 5th through 3 stages. Got Pablo Quintanilla in 7th. So that was, so see more, try to go through, see if there's anybody else. Daniel Sanders for Red Bull KTM, he's in 17th, 9 minutes 55 back. Jacob Argabright for the American rider, 19th. He is 11:19 back. So right now, I mean, it's still early days, but Americans definitely are in a good position, possibly to go and get another Dakar Rally win. In Rally 2, the Edgar Kinnett, who actually is in sort of ranking. Yeah, Edgar Kennett, who's actually 8th overall, 531 back, leads the Rally 2 category. Argabright is 548 behind him. So interesting there. Don't know anybody in that class. Yeah, so we'll leave that one alone. In the car category, the Saud Iyawa for Toyota leads over Gualain Chikarit. That's a name. Both of those names, good luck. Seth Quintero is a minute 48 back in third. Giel Demivius, fourth, and João Ferreira rounds out the top five. Multi-time champion Nasser Al-Attiyah and defending race winner, racing for the Dacia Sand Riders, 334 back in sixth. And then Matthias Ekstrom, former DTM champion, rally driver, 349 back, driving for M Sport Ford. So Seth Quintero up there early, Ekstrom, Nasser Al-Attiyah up there, Janil de Villiers, the legend, along with his teammate Lucas Marias in 9th, Janil de Villiers in 10th. So Mitchell Guthrie and Kellen Walk, the American duo for Ford, M Sport 738 behind in 13th. Christina Gutierrez for the Dacia Sand Riders, 15th. Remember her from her days racing for X44 in what's it called? Why am I forgetting? Extreme E. There you go. Yeah, Toby Price in his first race as the Dakar driving a car, along with Sam Sunderland, his former rival, in 18th. So there's that. Yeah, Corbin Leaferton. Think he's leading in the buggy category. Yeah, Corbin Leaverton in the challenger category is actually in fourth, 345 back. So the Americans definitely doing really well. Brock Hedger and Sebastian Loeb RZR ride in is third in SSV. Yeah, trucks and classic. Yeah, that's probably your Europeans, Dakar, Future Mission. So that's all by points. So that's so I mentioned Sarah Price is out. A former winner of the race in the Rally 2, Noah Harith, the Indian rider, fell out in stage 1. Leia Sanz, also extremely fell out in stage 2. In stage, I don't know any of that. Stage 2 or stage 3, Sebastian Loeb, the 9-time, or I think 10-time World Rally Champion, however many times World Rally Champion, has been trying to win this Dakar Rally. He is out. So Carlos Sainz Sr., smooth operator's dad, the World Rally Champion legend, racing for Ford after being able to drive his son's Formula One car at age 62, which is pretty badass. Struggling, has had a rollover, so isn't going to win probably this year, but giving himself an opportunity to still keep going. So we'll see what happens there. In NHRA news, Alexis DeJoria is joining the Joe Maynard team that ran 2 Top Fuel cars last year for Tony Schumacher and Ida Zederstrom. So there is that. Trying to see whatever other news. I mention the fact that we mentioned it before the end of our season that Jack Beckman will be the full-time driver of the Peak Funny Car next year. So that'll be big for the see if John Force and his recovery. Yeah, we saw some of these other Mike Coughlin, Mountain Motor, Pro Stock, Antron Brown, Extend, Matco Tools. Well, that's not surprising. Resurfacing Phoenix, Jordan Laser Pro Mod, Factory X, Blake Alexander and the Green family with the Funny Car, expanding the Funny Car program, 2 cars. And yeah, so I mean, like, and then you also have Tony Stewart Racing in their 25th year of existence this year. So it's pretty cool to see what they'll have going on with that. Of course, Tony will still be in the Top Fuel car, at least for 1 more year, while Leah, his mom, to their new son, will be out there at the racetrack, I'm sure, constantly. And so that's got other news we'll definitely get into once they get towards Gainesville. In the Tulsa shootout, I mean, Tulsa shootout was pretty big for Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell. And also in terms of other NASCAR guys, for Brexton Busch. Brexton Busch won one of the categories there, so 9 years old, and the guy is already turning into his dad and his uncle when his uncle isn't drunk and doing something stupid or hanging out with Ronnie the limo driver. You had, and then, I mean, Larson had come off of winning in Perth, Australia, in a winged sprint car. Yeah, Christopher Bell beat Larson in the non-wing out feature. So there was different guys there. I mean, Larson, I think, won one of the other classes. So, I mean, there were definitely guys that were able to fare well at the Tulsa shootout. Of course, Keebler Gibbs is going to make his debut in the Chili Bowl here in a couple weeks. You're going to have Larson back. You're going to have Chris Bell back in the race. No Chase Briscoe this year. He's hired somebody to drive his car. Guess the twins keep him busy. The three all having 3 kids now. But other NASCAR involvement, of course, Kyle Busch is going to be in that, try to make it. So we'll see what happens there. We'll preview it once that comes about, closer to it. Anaheim won Supercross, Super Motocross, in 2025. Basically, Monster Energy Supercross, the main thing to look at is for this year is at Eli Tomac. It'll be his last year for his illustrious career. so seeing him go and try and win one more championship in Supercross after what has been he's been able to do so much. We will see what happens there. Trying to find details, news, whatever. Last couple of yeah, so previews like a beta me trying to Chad, yeah, well, no, F him. And trying to get you, yeah, Jeremy Albrecht, yeah, who was at JGR. Suzuki, Ken Roxon, Colt Nichols, Kyle Chisholm. I'm trying to find details on Supercross, but I can't. Okay. All right, Monster Energy AMA Supercross. 450. Here we go. So in the 450 category, they don't have it sorted by manufacturer. They just show. So it shows, was it 4, 8, 12, 15. Wow. Jason Anderson riding for, of course, Monster Energy Kawasaki, former champion. Justin Barsha, he's from Jersey? Really? Wow. For Gas, Kyle Chisholm racing for Suzuki, his 20th year racing in Supercross. Justin Cooper for Yamaha, Monster Energy Star Racing. Christian Craig from Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha. Jet Lawrence, the defending champion for Honda. His brother Hunter. Colt Nichols racing for Suzuki. You have Aaron Plessinger still with KTM. Oh, wow. January 25th, 90. Oh, so wow. It was the day before a great birthday. Jorge Prado will be racing for Monster Energy Kawasaki this year, the Spanish rider. Ken Roxon for Suzuki. Chase Sexton for Red Bull KTM. Malcolm Stewart, Rockstar Husqvarna. So I don't know who his teammates are going to be. At Husqvarna, it's only him because it shows Christian Craig riding for Yamaha. So after being a Husky rider in the past, and Eli Tomac Cooper riding for Star Racing Yamaha. And then 250s, you have Hayden Deegan's going to race on the West Coast against Levi Kitchen, RJ Hampshire, amongst others. So that'll be very interesting. A1 situation there. So the time showing beta, that's beta team Benny Bloss and Mitchell Oldenburg on the beta 450 RX. Yeah, so Benny, yeah, so they'll both be, I guess they'll be in Supercross, yeah. So Benny Bloss, Mitchell Oldenburg, so you can add those two to the mix. Yeah, Triumph, they're running, of course, 250. And yeah, so that's that. For Supercross, we'll give you more updates on that as we move forward in the season. Formula E. Coming off of they raced at Sao Paulo in December, so they've had a month off. They'll have another month between Mexico City and the first double header, which will be Jeddah. The standings heading into the Mexico City Prix. Mitch Evans won at Brazil over Antonio Felix da Costa and Taylor Barnard. McLaren had a 3 and 4 finish. Mahindra's finished 5th and 6th. Defending world champion Pascal Wehrlein started on pole, but ended up having issues. Fastest lap was Antonio Felix da Costa there, so we'll see what happens this weekend. Mexico City, of course, you're taking portions of the Hermanos Orilla circuit, not the whole circuit, but definitely a regular track or somewhat regular track. So it'll be a challenge for sure. We'll see who is able to come out on top there. Teams championship as of the first round. McLaren leading by 2 points over Jaguar and 5 points over Tag Heuer Porsche. Mahindra in fourth, 9 points back. And then manufacturer, Jaguar leads Nissan by 4 points, Porsche by 9, Mahindra by 12. So that's the manufacturer's championship. All right, so we into the NFL and Super Wildcard Weekend. In the for the teams that have the byes, the Kermit the Frog and the Chiefs have the bye in the AFC. In the NFC, Detroit Lions, as Josh mentioned earlier, will have the bye after they destroyed the Vikings. But to get into all of these games this coming weekend, there you go. So they did fire Sorensen. Oh, that is something I just saw. That literally came out about 20-something minutes ago. Will not retain Nick Sorensen following 6-11 season with the squad. Finished 29th in points allowed. Chance Sorensen will remain on staff, but won't be his leader. One name I'll jump is Robert Saleh. Yeah, so Wilkes so Del rash injuries, while 7 last 8, Northern, 20 was worse for the club since dead last in 2016. His hires even defensive passing in 20. Shanahan will be looking for, so. And then, you have Antonio Pierce is out there. That's another option. But Bob Saleh, so there you go. The two of the people that I wanted to see gone, special teams coordinator and the defensive coordinator, they're both gone. So Shanny and Lynch actually doing something right for the first time in a while. Hasn't looked great this year, so I will take that though. Moving into the playoffs, though, a place where the 49ers have been for many years recently, but not this year. They'll be the number 11 overall pick in the NFL draft come April. But for teams that are playing here this weekend, the Texans in their usual 4:30 Saturday spot on wildcard weekend, they will open against the LA Chargers, Jim Harbaugh's LA Chargers. To me, the momentum is definitely on the side of the Chargers. I think they're just the tougher team. CJ Stroud has not had as good of a year as he did last year. The Chargers defense is pretty tough. And the running game, if they're able to get J.K. Dobbins going and they're able to control the clock, it's going to be very hard for Houston to put up the points that they need to do, personally. While I do like C.J. Stroud and I'm a fan, of course, D'Amico Ryans and all that, I do not think that they're that good of a team this year. I think the Chargers get that win and move forward. But what do you say, Josh, in regards to that for that game?
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I think the Chargers should be able to win that game against the Texans. Texans just haven't been effective throughout the season. I don't think being able to get into the playoffs, I don't think that changes that at all. CJ Stroud just hasn't been the same quarterback as he was a year ago. Just hadn't figured it out. Defense has definitely adjusted to him, what he was doing well last year, and they just haven't had a good season at all this year. So Houston kind of backdooring their way into the playoffs, of course. So they just didn't really have much challenge from anybody in the division, of course. But now they're hosting the Chargers. But do you think Jim Harbaugh will lead the Chargers out of there with the win? So that's what I'm going to go with as well.
Yeah, I mean, and the way the Chargers had to be battle tested to get to this point, they gave Kermit the Frog a run, one of many games in which the Chiefs probably could have lost that they didn't. So it's something to look at. Can Jim Harbaugh, of course, getting over that hump at Michigan, winning that national championship, would that also go and travel? Can he treat the Kansas City Chiefs the way he treated Ohio State for the last few years in his time at Michigan and slay the dragon, so to speak? The second game will be the NFC or AFC North battle. The Manny's Pittsburgh Steelers, Manny and Matt's Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. That game, I mean, I said, Lamar Jackson had his best year of his career, and that defense has had issues at times, but the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have the they don't have the ability to they just don't have the ability to score points. I just don't think that they'll be able to stay with Baltimore on offense. They'll get out to an early lead, Baltimore, with whatever wide receiver it'll be, or Mark Andrews, who's came from the dead recently. And then they'll just give it to Derrick Henry. So Derrick Henry is built for these moments. From December on, he might be the best running back we've ever seen. When you get to late in the season, I don't think there's anybody better, or has been in the last few years, but there's just something about the later in the year, Derrick Henry becomes something even more than what he already is. So another game-changing part of what makes Baltimore a little more scary overall, even if their defense may not be as good as it has been in the past, is the fact they have Derrick Henry. So I think Baltimore gets through that game on Saturday on Prime Video, and they're able to move forward into the divisional round, which would likely mean that they would go against whoever that will win on on Sunday morning, or Sunday, first game on Sunday. But do you see anything different there, Josh?
I don't really see anything different there either. I think this one, uh, pretty easy. Baltimore should get the win pretty easily. The Steelers, I mean, uh, it's been an up and down season really for the Steelers. They kind of just been winning games in spite of their quarterback play for the most part. I mean, Russell Wilson did have a stretch where he was playing really, really well, and I saw that. I mean, going back to fantasy, I mean, there was a couple of games where it was looking like Russell Wilson was putting a lot of points up fantasy wise, but last four games after kind of being okay, we might see the Steelers be like the fifth seed. They kind of fell off pretty hard, and especially the final game where they had to win to get the fifth seed overall and eliminate the Bengals from playoff competition and not let them backdoor. They played pretty ineffectively, even though they had a chance within the final minutes to win that game. So, yeah, I think the Ravens win this one pretty handedly. I don't think there's going to be a competition there.
Yeah, so right now, there would be an elimination of a division winner, uh, with Houston going based on what we think. Baltimore, of course, won the North, and then the AFC East champions again, the Buffalo Bills, and the person who I think will be the MVP of the league, Josh Allen, the god of Buffalo himself, will get to play against Denver, who absolutely boat raced a UFL team that paraded around as the Kansas City Chiefs um, on Sunday, 38-0 to get into the playoffs after being on their third chance to make the playoffs. They finally go and win against second string players there in Kansas City. That was a nothing burger for them. Denver, though, and for Bo Nix, could he take that momentum and carry that into his first playoff game, going to Orchard Park, going to whatever they call that stadium now, what used to be Ralph Wilson Stadium. The fact is, though, Buffalo is a really, really good team, and Josh Allen has been able to spread the ball around better than almost anybody in the league. So Denver has a really good defense, I will say that, but they won't be able to keep up with everything. You have James Cook, who's playing at a high level. You have numerous receivers, tight ends, whatever, pass catchers that can make plays. They're not going to be able to keep up points wise either. So based on that, I say Buffalo. They end up hosting, based on what we're talking about, means they would be hosting Baltimore for divisional round weekend, which would be an outstanding game if that were to actually come to fruition. Probably the top two guys in the MVP race battling it out would be an epic matchup. Do you see Denver being able to go in there with Sean Payton? Can he go out there and fake kickoffs? I don't think they do that anymore. I don't think you can fake kickoffs anymore. But, will they have enough tricks up their sleeve to possibly go and fade Buffalo in Buffalo?
Yeah, this one's a little bit tougher call here. The Denver, I think, out of the teams here, the most wild card out of the wild card teams in the AFC. They had a poor start to the season, but they've been on it ever since. But they, their record against good teams, they haven't had that good of a record in spite of that. But Josh Allen, the Bills, pretty dominant force. We could see Bo Nix put up some points there against the Bills, but I think it's going to be a little bit too much for him first ever playoff game as a rookie here in the NFL. So going to see a lot of things that he's never seen before. So I think, yeah, these ones pretty predictable. I think we're both in agreement here. I think the Bills move on and host the Ravens there in the divisional round.
And that'll end the first part of the weekend. The first 3 games of the weekend are the AFC games. The last 3 games will be all the NFC. The first one will be the number 2 seeded Eagles going against the number 7 seeded Green Bay Packers. They had a scare injury-wise for Jordan Love last week, but it sounds like he'll be okay. The Eagles sat basically everybody and then still beat the crap out of the Giants, though whoever the second string guys did allow Malik Neighbors to do some work. This game, I think, is a little tougher because Green Bay did play very well, minus they were only losing to Detroit and Minnesota. So they're sneaky. They're a sneaky team. But the Eagles' offense is really, really good. And I mean, defense wins championships here. The Eagles' defense has been one of the best defenses. Vic Fangio, the ageless defensive mind, coming to the Eagles, has gotten the most out of a lot of these players. And Saquon in his first playoff appearance here, I think, is very eager. He didn't get to go and get the record. He didn't get the record for most rushing yards ever in a single season. So I think he'll be very anxious to come back out there and do some work. What will Jalen Hurts be like? How will he feel after not being at 100% for a little bit? So it's all to be determined. But while I want to pick Green Bay, I kind of have concerns about Green Bay in general. So I go with the chalk here, and I go with the Philadelphia Eagles. What say you, Josh, in regards to that game?
I think we're both in agreement here because I think the Eagles can win this one. I think it's a little bit tougher. Yeah, you're right. The Packers have played pretty well throughout the season, but I mean they had this basically rematch of the season opener for them in Philadelphia. But I mean I think part of it is just because I think the Eagles' running game is just too good to lose against the Packers. The Saquon and Jalen Hurts combination there running, I think that's pretty tough to beat. So I think Saquon. I mean, I personally think Saquon should be the MVP. I think we need a running back to win the award, but Saquon and Hurts, it's a tough combo to beat for the Packers. So I'm gonna roll with the home team.
And that will lead into probably, I think, the most entertaining game of the weekend, the Sunday night football game, which will have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who for a half last week looked like they were on the ropes, and between them and the Atlanta Falcons, you had the Buccaneers against the Saints, and they made Spencer Rattler look like a goat for a good amount of that game. Atlanta was just dealing. They were having a shootout with Carolina and Bryce Young, who in the last, I don't know how many weeks of the season, almost changed his whole narrative in his career, in a sense. So, um, Washington, they probably have the rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year in Jaden Daniels. You want to talk about leadership and the symmetry, or the the ability to put the coach and the GM together. You have Dan Quinn coming back to being a head coach in a division that he knows very well because he had worked for Dallas for years. Then you have Adam Peters, who was with the San Francisco 49ers for many years. They should have made him the GM. They let him go out the door. He goes to Washington. His first pick is Jaden Daniels, who's going to be the offensive rookie of the year, more than likely. And the Washington General Redskin Commanders are back in the playoffs. And so this game this is the toughest one so far. I think these last two games are much tougher. I think the NFC is much more spread out, more even. I think the AFC is very top heavy in terms of who could get the job done there, with those elite quarterbacks in what is that, at least in the spots in for the three teams, the top three teams. Washington is able to put up points. Their defense is solid, of course. But Tampa Bay has a dynamic offense with Baker Mayfield. The guy's a gamer. Trying to get into. These are two guys. I mean, you have Todd Bowles, trying to go and get a playoff win here at home. Quinn had 28-3 with Atlanta with Kyle Shanahan, and it didn't come off for him. But now he gets a new opportunity with Washington. So personally, I believe Tampa gets this one, largely because they're at home. But it wouldn't surprise me if Washington were to come through in this spot, and get the victory. In part because they're just they've been scrappy all year, and you have a rookie quarterback who's hungry and a Heisman Trophy winning guy. He wants to go out there and put the team on his back. You have Bobby Wagner, who always seems to put himself in these kind of spots. But I think Tampa. Do you go? Are we in agreement here too?
I mean, this is tough. I mean, Baker's played really well throughout this year, but the Bucs defense just has not been good. I mean, we saw that at the end of the game on Sunday. I mean, the Bucs were behind, and then Baker willed them to win. And I was talking with somebody today. They said, Baker can probably will the Bucs all the way, and I'm like, I don't know about that. That's pretty tough. So you need defense to be able to win these playoff games, and it's just been not there for the Bucs. That was, I mean, at one point we thought the Bucs were out of it. It was over in November, but then they came back, and now they're back in the playoffs. I mean, this one could go either way, honestly. But you know what? I'm gonna go with my guy Dale Jr. here and pick the Commanders, and go with Jaden Daniels. I think they've been able to play pretty well. He's done a lot throughout his rookie season and shown he's really good at quarterback, and definitely is candidate for rookie of the year for him. So they've done pretty well. I mean, defense, I think they have pretty good defense as well. So I mean, this one could go either way. I mean, there's a reason why it's on Sunday Night Football for this one, but yeah, I'm gonna go with the Commanders here.
All right, so yeah, we'll we were 4 for 4 in agreement, and first deviation. So be interesting to see what that game is like. That's the game I'm really looking forward to, honestly. That and the Buffalo game earlier in the day. So we'll see what happens with that. Wow, that was a great shot by Xander. Doesn't count for anything because they're losing, but whatever. Um, but the final game of the weekend will be Monday Night Football. Vikings going to LA to play the Rams. The Rams, 10-win team, were able to come through that division and make the most out of it, and put themselves in a place where they're have a home game. And if they were to win, they would end up facing, more than likely face the Eagles in the divisional round. Vikings got destroyed by the Lions on Sunday. Can they recover? Can Sam Darnold fade the fact that that there was a little bit of an exposure there of some of his weaknesses? Will Minnesota actually come out and play? I do think they'll be more competitive. The Rams played a lot of close games this year. McVay and Kevin O'Connell know each other very well. So there's that whole storyline. I mean, in the end, the Minnesota Vikings overall were a better team across the season. So do I think they come off the mat and show up in this spot? I do think they put up a fight. But the Rams are at home, and Stafford, this probably is his last run. And so I think if they go and do what they need to do, I think they go and get the win on Monday night and move forward to play the Eagles. But it wouldn't shock me if Minnesota were to go out there and win, even though they looked as bad as they did on Sunday against the Lions. But is that your assessment, or do you see?
I think that's my assessment too, because the Vikings, I mean, they played really well throughout the year. I mean, another great year for Justin Jefferson. We've seen Jordan Addison come into light as well as a rookie. I mean, Sam Darnold, of course. The question is can they give him a franchise tag for next year, or is he going to get picked up and get signed to a big contract by another team because they have a rookie that was on the bench for this year, and nobody thought Sam Darnold would have the year that he had. But I think, the game that they played against the Lions, I think kind of exposed him a bit. But I mean, even going back to November, the game against Jacksonville, 12-7, he played really poorly in that one for the most part. Had 3 interceptions in that game. So look at that as kind of a game that, Sam Darnold probably should have won, considering, we talked about the Jags earlier. That one should have been really easy for him, but, they played pretty poorly in that one. So the Rams, on the other hand, you got Sean McVay and you got Matt Stafford there as well, which I think that this is the sleeper team of the NFC for some reason. The Rams, I didn't think that they'd be here, but they are here, and I definitely think this is maybe one of the more sneaky teams in the entire playoff field that could have a run. We could see them go in this one. So I could see them going to the NFC Championship game, or at least to the divisional round. So yeah, I'm going to say that the Rams take this one here. It's going to be a very defensive game, I think, here. So we'll see how it goes, but I think the Rams win this one. Kind of close. We'll see how it goes.
So basically, I think the only team, I think every game we went uh, the same there. The only lower seed that we went with initially was the Chargers. Otherwise, chalk until the Sunday night football game where we both went and went different ways there, and then you have uh, the Monday night football game, which we both picked the same. So a lot of chalk, but we'll see what happens with that next week, and we'll discuss it on episode 252. Ken Trader numbers there on the GSP. All right, so for the first time in 2025, it's time for Josh's Sim segment. Let us know what's going on. iRacing, a lot of updates seemingly with iRacing and some of these other gaming platforms on the Sim. So I've been spending a lot of time watching Greg Z VR because he goes and races Formula One cars from back in the day. So cool racing, cool cars, and the engines to hear all that. So what have
Yeah.
you been doing there?
Well, for iRacing, I mean, I think and there's a lot of updates, yeah, like you said, but I think really the biggest piece of news for me to start off with is well, there's two big things. I'll say the first one is the PRI Hoosier 500. So the race formerly known as the Open Wheels 500, which we've had Tanner Watkins as a guest very early on in this show, but this PRI, the Performance Racing Industry, that's a big conference show that's held in Indianapolis at the end of every year, and they've agreed to sponsor the the Hoosier 500, now renamed from the Open Wheels 500, and they're, I think, going to have a lot of involvement promoting the event, and Tanner and his crew are working very hard to get this promoted to be a big event in sim racing. So it's going to be a 2-week deal from first week of December to December 14, with December 14 being the feature event of the Open Wheels 500, and trying to simulate as much as possible the real life timeline leading up into the Indianapolis 500 being simulated in December. So it's going to be a big event on sim racing for sure, and hopefully there'll be a lot of big names coming in. There was a lot of debate and discussion of when this event would actually happen in December internally, but they got it all ironed out for everybody to work out the best, because I think if they had it later on, would have been some conflicts for Christmas and stuff. So December 14 this year, the very end of the year, so it'll be a lot of time to prep for this if people are gonna do this. But it's a private event, I think, and it's I think for free. I don't think there's any monetary. I don't know. We'll see what happens, because now they're having a corporate sponsor here, so we'll see what they do here. But that's a huge deal. Of course, the Open Wheels 500, very prestigious event in IndyCar on iRacing. So to see that with the amount of involvement there, with especially Tanner being on the NHRA side these days in media, that's kind of interesting there. So that's pretty big there. Of course, the other thing I wanted to say as well, I've officially entered the 24 Hours of Daytona on iRacing. There's a community on here on Discord, Sim Party Racing, that I saw an ad on iRacing Reddit. So went on there and signed up for it, and they've already organized the teams. So be tentatively, I will be, but I mean, of course, things could come up. So, but I do intend on being available for this, but we will be racing in our team, the Ferrari 296 GT3. So I was doing some practice laps earlier before we recorded this, and trying to get a feel for it. So looking forward to doing this. Of course, inspired by the run in the coast to coast cannonball run. So maybe we'll do that. Then I think should be able to do an online sim race for 24 hours. So hopefully it'll be chances to get in some runs, of course, get in some stints. Should be interesting. And then of course a week later, the real life 24 Hours of Daytona. So looking forward to competing this for the first time in this event. First time really doing any endurance racing of any kind on iRacing. So jumping right into the deep end there. So looking forward to running with the people I've been teamed up with, and hopefully we can get a good finish there. Hopefully, I mean, if we win, I mean that'd be great. But just be able to finish the race and complete it. That'd be really nice there too. So we'll see how that goes, and definitely we'll be talking about that and prepping for that here in the next coming weeks. In between work stuff and all that, but we'll get through it. I guess in iRacing news, because you're trying to see the updates. Of course, the special events coming out. Okay, so the iRacing 24 Hours of Daytona next weekend, the January the 17th, 18th. So basically 2 weeks of time, but there's only one weekend until that. This coming weekend, of course, iRacing Roar before or Roar at Daytona. So we got that going on there. iRacing NASCAR Winter Heat Series as well at Michigan this weekend. So that should be interesting there. And everything. iRacing Esports. They had the IMSA Esports Championship race at Sebring this past weekend. And I think they continue now going to Daytona, of course. So that should be interesting as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of stuff on iRacing this year. I think Dale Jr.'s got a special event at the end of the month at Iowa with the mini stocks. So that should be pretty fun as well. And then, of course, all the main iRacing events later on in the year. So, yeah, it should be interesting year of sim racing for sure. And, glad to be able to kick it off, I guess, with a bang with the iRacing 24 Hours of Daytona coming up here. So, a lot of prep into that. So, of course, as always, you can catch the streams on there, which I'd definitely be streaming. We'll definitely have to, so I'm not intending to drive for 24 hours, can't do that, but all that, I mean, I intend to do all my shifts and all that, but I'll have to have this set up so that you can actually watch the car, I guess, while it's going on, not just the onboard, so you can kind of get better context otherwise. So definitely be streaming that and have that set up there. So, of course, watch that on UCLR2 on Twitch on there. So go on there and watch that stream. And definitely should be fun, and definitely be good experience on sim racing. So definitely looking forward to being able to do that. And of course, Twitter, JP Huffine, go on there and see all my stuff, rant about the Jacksonville Jaguars amongst other things, and sharing all the different things about racing and all that. So go on there and follow. And of course, Grip Strip Podcast, which of course this episode will be up there as well, and be able to watch that and see the championship belt on there. Which, Phil, you might have to, as the close, you might have to just re-demonstrate that for in case you missed it at the very beginning. But beautiful championship belt there, up there on screen. So great to have that on there, and a great way to start out the year.
I'm telling you, it's a gimmick. It's like wrestling. So we're gonna go with this at least. I said at least until the Clash, probably before the Daytona 500. So we got a few more weeks of me wearing this belt. In terms of football, for me, I'm very happy that it's sad people lose their jobs, but I'm in a field where people trying to get work. But when you consider what the performance was from the team and where they were, two coaches that probably needed to be replaced were replaced. So we'll see who they are able to get for the 49ers there. As always, thank you to you, Josh, for all your contributions, all your help and friendship. And I'm glad that we get to do this again in 2025, season 6 of the show. You can find us at Gripster Pod on Twitter. Find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter. PGMGSP28 on Blue Sky. And whatever my if you can follow, Telegram, no, and then Instagram is PGMGSP28 as well. So PhilipGMatthew.com if you want to find the show audio, find us on my personal YouTube, but then also we have the Grip Strip podcast YouTube page. And that's it for the start of the season here, episode 251. And we will come back next week for episode 252 to talk about Super Wildcard Weekend, who advanced, who will be in the divisional round. Include, of course, Kermit the Frog, and then the Detroit Lions and divisional round weekend, and updates on coaching, GM searches, any news going on in the world of racing, update the Dakar, update Formula E and Supercross, and I think the Chili Bowl is next week, but if not, it's next week. And so we'll see what happens with that, and we'll give a preview that way. But for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks as always for listening to Gripster Podcast, and we will see you next time.